I still believe that Liz Truss is a secret agent bringing down the Conservative Party from the Lib Dems.
Probably. She's doing a wonderful job.
Welcome everybody to the Sunday Roast. We're back again for this Sunday to talk about all the craziness that's taking place in the UK that no one outside the UK can fully understand. So we've got a series of excellent experts to explain everything from the economy to the Wallies in power. Let's start off. David, please introduce yourself to everyone.
I'm David Henig. I tweet occasionally. I work with a think tank, the European Centre for International Political Economy. I look at economics, politics, nothing much that might fill my time this week, but I'll do my best.
David, I'm going to ask with an introduction like that, has anyone come knocking on your door to be like, can you help?
Yeah, quite a lot. That's why the door's shut, bolted, locked. Oh, come on, you've got to. How else are you going to keep your sanity right now than to underplay it? This is Britishness in action, Englishness perhaps in action. Oh, something happened. Oh, best not talk about it. Oh, should we sweep it under the carpet? No, Boris Johnson's coming. Oh, anyway, more later.
All Shorts, please can you introduce yourself?
Hello, buddy. I don't know if you already know me. Some people you will do. I've got a small YouTube channel. Hit by Brexit, destroyed my business, I'm a woodworker. Yeah, I've just got a general interest in it all, really, because it's not just screwed myself over, it's screwed my families, everyone's futures as well, plus obviously what's going on in the environment, which is complete and utter. Yeah, storm. I left the swear word out. Just
My beautiful co-host, Max.
Hi guys, my name is Max. I run the Robespierre channel, talk about British politics and Brexit in particular. And Alex, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm an historian, I am an author, and I run my own YouTube channel. And we're going to get straight into talking about the economy. And obviously, I'm going to go to the most obvious candidate to talk about that. David, how's the economy doing? What would you like to talk about?
Well, Liz Truss went, and we had a very quiet period of an hour and 13 minutes, which was the time between Liz Truss announcing she was gone and Boris Johnson saying he was going to run. What's happened, and at first people regarded that as a joke, what's happened since is, remember those economic days of, a few days ago when the economy was struggling, gilt interest rates were going up, mortgage interest rates were going up, and then it was all apparently fixed because Jeremy Hunt came in, and now it's all apparently not fixed again because the fear of Boris Johnson getting in, and he would do the same. So, what is the economy doing? Essentially, for quite a lot of years, the UK has had a bit of a problem described as, we want Scandinavian public services paid for by US taxes. And really, that problem's gone back to the 1992 election, which some of you will recall was won by the Conservatives putting the fear of God into everybody that Labour would raise taxes, since when everybody's been terrified of raising taxes, and we've had this growing problem. So you had this growing problem. Obviously, Brexit didn't do much for the public finances either, given it depressed growth. And then you got Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng saying, I know what we'll do. We'll put a gigantic tax cut in on top of a large public spending commitment to subsidise energy prices, and the markets will love it. And the markets did indeed react to it very strongly by having what's old-fashionedly known as a run on the pound. Now, in the olden days, that meant a devaluation, but it's all a bit more complex these days. So it meant that the pound didn't actually go down that much. The pound is pretty low in value already. But what happened was these gilt rates, essentially that's the cost of government borrowing, that went up. And what the markets were basically saying is, if you're going to borrow, you're going to have to pay more to do it. So interest rates are going to go up. So your mortgage rates are going to go up. And that was what essentially was assumed to cost the economy about £10 billion. So that's it in a nutshell. Then Jeremy Hunt came in and said, we're not in fact doing any of that. And so that effect rewound a bit. So maybe interest rates will still go up from now, but maybe not quite as much. But Boris Johnson, there's not a man who's good at saying no to public spending rises. Isn't going to want any tax increases. So suddenly the markets are all afraid again. the stories around on who the economic advisors are to this, because there's lots of credible economists out there filling up our Twitter airwaves, a lot more credible than I am, Torsten Bell or of Resolution Foundation and Giles Wilkes. But they're not the people who are advising government. The people who are advising government are a couple of individuals, Andrew Lillico, Julian Jessup, Patrick Minford, people who perhaps their economics is less important than the fact that something better justify what it is the government they're supporting is doing. And there's this story that Andrew Lillico was in fact at Chequers advising the new Prime Minister. And to be honest, that sort of makes sense if any of this makes sense whatsoever, but not in a good way.
Just to give some context, I think, was it Patrick Minford who said that following Brexit, the economy would be the GDP would be boosted by 7%, when in reality it dropped by 4%.
Yeah, but he also said that we'd have to run down the car industry.
It's perfectly true that if you remove protection, the sort that has been given in particular to the car industry and to other manufacturing industries inside the protective wall, you have got you're going to have a change in the situation facing that industry, and you are going to have to run it down, and it will be in your interest to do it just in the same way that we ran down the coal industry.
He said many things over the time. He said something about how the Australia trade deal would have this incredible increase in exports and GDP, the likes of which have never been associated with a trade deal in history. And I mean, essentially, he has absolutely zero credibility. But Andrew Lillico is famous for saying mad things on Twitter. So, I mean, these are people with no credibility who are then become advisors to the Prime Minister. There's something wrong with this picture.
How is he a university professor? What has he done? I mean, I assume he must have read some of his material. I've listened to him in committee. I get where he's coming from. I just think he's batshit crazy. So I wouldn't go near it.
Or is he?
I wouldn't go near it.
If it's a conspiracy theory, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you might suggest that maybe they're doing it for alternative reasons to feather their own nest, depending on where they put their investments. Like
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Patrick Minford really believes this stuff. He's been a professor for a long time. I actually was at one of his select committees. I was appearing in the next panel, and you're there having a chat before the select committee. And normally you get on reasonably okay with people, even if you don't agree with them. Patrick Minford treated absolutely everybody else who was due to give evidence like they were far beneath him, that he was the great guru of everything. And he was distinctly snooty and unpleasant, and that is very unusual. So not only is his economics all wrong, he's arrogant with it as well.
That explains why it's all wrong.
David, can you explain what's happening between the Treasury and the Bank of England? Because what the Bank of England is doing is they're trying to bring down inflation by increasing interest rates, but the Treasury the Treasury are blaming the Bank of England for inflation in a sense. What's going on between the two?
Yeah, but also, isn't the Treasury now going to pay the Bank of England 11 billion?
Right, yeah. This is where it's complex economics and institutional structures happy hour. We're not going to do this for too long, but look, Bank of England got independence in 1997. Before that, the government used to set interest rates as well. Now, the Bank of England sets what's called monetary policy, the supply of money, and ultimately interest rates, which all strongly affects the rate of the pound. They may also intervene in those in those markets, and they manage debt on behalf the national debt. The Treasury is the policy making side, but it also manages tax, and it manages what's known as the fiscal side of the economy, tax and spend, how much they tax, what they spend. And the problem has been, or was with the Truss and Kwarteng, is that you were trying to do fiscal expansionism. We are spending more fiscally, we are borrowing more, and then the bank felt that it had to do monetary contraction. We'll need to raise interest rates, and that means that entirely removes the point of the fiscal expansion. So you try to borrow more, you end up paying more for the borrowing. It has no overall effect on the overall demand in the economy is how it all should work. So in theory, the bank and the Treasury, are supposed to talk lots to each other. The evidence suggests that Kwasi Kwarteng, so enamored was he of his own brilliance, didn't bother to tell the bank what he was about to do, or indeed anybody. And that was half the reason for the reaction. And then he said, and we're going to do more of it. So there was that. But overall, you've got a bit of a problem with the UK economy. When I say a bit of a problem, I mean a very, very large problem, which is that we are not taxing enough for what we're spending, or spending too much for what we're taxing.
Well, aren't we borrowing?
Mainly probably because we have an ageing society and we're paying pensioners better. Well, that's a good thing, is it not? But these health services, and my mother's using been using a few of them, and they can be very good, but they're very expensive. And then you get people saying, "Oh, but we don't want to pay tax. We want to cut tax." Well,
yeah, but we've done this for a long time. It's not people. Yeah, they've always been old people. There's, I mean, okay, you might argue that the health services have created a larger elderly population, but we knew this was coming. So why didn't we plan for it? The idea that we can carry on borrowing money to pay off borrowing? Was it 83 billion in interest that we have to pay every year? It's just madness.
I mean, there are big numbers around this, and they can sort of send you off in various directions. I prefer to focus on the sort of the smaller and more understandable numbers that we can see. I go to the shop, the prices are obviously going up quite a lot. People's wages are not going up. If they work for the public services, they're particularly not going up. That's inflation. Your mortgage rates are about to go up if you have a mortgage. Large amounts of property are not owned by people who have mortgages. They are owned outright, so there may not be a property price crash, but it will be very uncomfortable. Generationally, we are basically impoverishing the under 50s and favouring the over 65s.
Ones who vote.
There's a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just saying that we're going around
in circles.
As in the head, crazy people.
Yeah.
There's
all sorts of really interesting history, Cat. There's all sorts of interesting historical comparisons to this. I mean, the fact that it was interesting. You sent us the article from The Guardian being like, she didn't consult or speak to the economists and didn't listen to their advice prior to saying this, which was be careful. It almost felt like, I don't know if you've ever seen the scenes in The Simpsons where Bart goes and hides from Sideshow Bob, the killer, basically, who's out to get him. And he needs some reassuring. And Homer comes in and goes,
"Why do you want some brownie before you go to bed?"
Ah!
Come on, let me cut you a brownie while they're still hot.
Dad, I'm kind of edgy right now. I'd appreciate you not coming in my room screaming and brandishing a butcher knife.
Why? Oh, right. The Sideshow Bob thing. Oh, I'm sorry, boy. What, do you want to see my new chainsaw and hockey mask?
Ah!
Oh, sorry. What am I thinking?
I mean, that is literally what Liz Truss was told not to do and went off and did it,
Well,
which is...
I don't have a great deal of sympathy for these economists because they're still on the view that actually it would have worked if only we hadn't scared them. This stuff wouldn't have worked. This is fringe economics. This is the idea that if you lower tax, you get more revenues from it. Something called the Laffer curve, which was literally drawn up on the back of a napkin in a restaurant in the 1970s. It was dubious then. Largely now it's been proved to be utter nonsense. So there's that side of things. And then there's the regulatory side. If we get rid of all the regulation, let's put aside whether we can or not. In fact, we can't. Then that will make a huge economic difference. Again, it's completely bogus economics. It's based on the idea of, in the 1980s, we had monopolies and we got rid of regulation so that we allowed them to be competition. That had a good effect. Yes, we get that. Yeah. That's not the same as if we get rid of all environmental regulation, or my favourite example, or my least favourite example, if we get rid of all regulation on house building material, won't that save house builders a lot of money? No, it won't. Just look at that 15 billion bill currently arising from Grenfell Tower and the lives lost. So it's nonsensical economics. It's a fringe position. And unfortunately, I suspect the next Conservative leader will still be adopting it.
David, I was reading something yesterday, David. There's there's a Trussonomics could have worked if we were still in the EU. I thought, what? It's like I could be that. It's bonkers outside the EU. It's going to be bonkers in it. Yeah, but maybe we had some economic stability while we're in the EU. Maybe that's
the essential thing. Look, there is an argument that says that UK economic success. I've used that word slightly consciously of the fact that we didn't do that well in the 1980s, notwithstanding the views of we later attribute to it. Were largely in part due to the fact that the single market was coming into being in the EU, and clearly it is a rejection of Thatcherism to not be in the single market. But no, this kind of low tax deregulation stuff is reheated leftovers of the worst bits of Thatcherism, and deserves to be given a not even very good burial.
I am gonna bring in a cost of living thing. You've got a shrinking population, which is something you brought up, David. And I was listening to a little bit of what goes on in Japan. And one of the things that one of the economists was talking about over there, or the analysis, was they've got a situation now where they've got an aging population, similar to the UK, but they've also got a situation which they've been pretty terrified of, where there are more adult diapers being sold than children's diapers. So,
I've got one thing to say to that: sperm count.
Well, I would. You can bring that in with stress. Sperm count goes down with stress. It's also probably associated with and plastics. So you're sort of going, and it then goes back to having this free market. Let's all put plastic in our clothing and in our bedding, and then we'll all breathe it in at night. What effects is that having on the human condition?
Yeah.
No one. I don't know much research into that. What was that, Marcus?
I don't know about you, but I've noticed it.
So you've got this situation where if they're not sorting out the lowest levels of the population are less likely to have large numbers of kids. And with the capitalist system, it tends to be very important to have at least 2.1 or 2.4 children per family, so that the population is continually replenishing itself. But because they've decided that they're just going to hammer the poor, and they're going to increase the number of people who are poor, they're going to put themselves into a position and lower the middle class. They're going to create a situation where you've got a top-down system which you can't operate, or is very difficult. I think the Netherlands has that at the moment, and they seem to be operating financially quite well somehow. I don't know how they've done that, I've not researched it, but I am aware they've got a similar problem. The three things that seem to be historically important are rent, food, and fuel. And fuel's more of a 20th century, 21st century issue than it is of the past. But you've got to keep an eye on those prices. I would even venture that we've got hyperinflation. So we've had the doubling of the price of oat milk. It's gone from £1 to about £2 in the space of about 3 months. That's a sign of hyperinflation, which I've not heard anyone in the news really talk about. But it is also a big concern. Marx, we haven't heard from you at all on this. What are your thoughts? I'd love to know what Italy's thinking. And Marcus, I want to know what France is saying about this.
And how much is food in Italy?
Prices have gone up, but I don't think to the same extent as the UK.
It's gone up quite a bit here in France.
It has, yeah. No, I've tend to notice a few things have gone up, but some things have remained the same. So it's been difficult to identify, is everything going up? But the point that you're making about just what you're saying about Japan is really interesting as well, because if you look at some developed countries, people have more money. The society, GDP increases. What happens is more women enter the workforce, and they tend to have fewer children. The counter to that was that we would increase immigration. So yes, the citizens would reduce, but more immigrants would come. And what's happening in the UK is they're having the same problem as Japan, but what they're not doing is increasing immigration, or at least
Japan
trying to.
Has.
Japan no.
It
has it?
Yes, it has been increasing its immigration because the economy won't work. Capitalism, as an economic system in its current form, cannot cope with this issue. It doesn't seem to work, and it's like governments haven't quite twigged this. I mean,
you look at what's happening in China with its one-child policy. They've got such an aging population; they're struggling to function. And obviously with COVID as well.
Yeah, there is a strong grounds for thinking that a lot of growth since the mid-1980s has actually been driven by China's population changes. Basically, population moving from the rural areas to the cities, generating a lot of wealth, a lot more competition. That's over now. One of the things that I kind of get annoyed about sometimes is everybody getting very angry, upset about the rise of China or whatever. Well, it's kind of happened, actually.
Well, we caused it.
So shall we look at what's next? And all evidence is that China is now slowing down. They didn't produce their growth figures. All evidence is that we're actually globally also in a bit of a pickle with regard to growth, and that's bad news for the UK, because generally, however much you screw up your own economy, you hope that if the global picture is good and people are trading lots well, how much can you screw up your own economy?
The thing is, we are part of that global economy.
But we are part of that the global economy, the European economy, and they're not doing great either. So it's not great news for us.
Marcus, how's it being viewed in France?
In France, well, obviously, the prices have most definitely increased. You can't get Weetabix for love of money. Mrs. is really upset. But it's just, it is, even we're having to sort of tighten our belts somewhat. It's just things have become far more expensive. And the food in France was more expensive than the UK anyway in the first place. Unless you want to buy, locally in the sense of the farmer markets and stuff like that around here. Well, you get, we do a lot of bartering here in the sense that, we grow food. Now, the Max has started growing a bit of food as well. We grow food and we tend to swap and share with other people around here. So rural communities, I don't think have quite so much of a problem because we tend to look after each other. But if you think about how things used to be, we had a period of time, including in France, but also in the UK as well, where people left the rural communities. They went to the cities to get work. The kids used to leave home to go to the cities to get work, didn't they? To work, work in Paris or Rouen, places like that. And then what happened is, since the internet and what have you, people started, okay, we can now. Well, obviously with immigration, what have you, regarding the European Union, what have you, but the rural economies are starting to build up again. We've got people moving away from the cities back into rural communities, but the infrastructure hasn't really kept up with it, to be honest. Like, for instance, years ago, there used to be a tram system in France. Everyone kind of, obviously with the cars and that as well, but they left the rural communities, they went to the cities, and then all of a sudden those networks have just dissipated over a period of time. And now we kind of need them again, because the network here regarding public transport in, like for instance, where I am in the Limousin, okay, we've got really good bus to get, say, for instance, to Limoges, which is in the car is 30 minutes away, but by bus it's 2 hours. It's cheap, but it takes 2 hours. There's such a roundabout route. So how are you supposed to progress?
Something important on inflation, I think, which is not really being picked up, shows how much modern food production relies on energy. Why are food prices going up so many places? Yes, there's a Russia-Ukraine issue, yes. But I think, because modern food production needs energy, whether it's, hydroponics in Dutch greenhouses or fertilizers or even organics, a lot of them do rely on a high energy production. So energy costs go up. And I think that's not being picked up. Inflation is likely to be here to stay now. The period of very low inflation has probably passed. And so this is the new normal. Look, I'm afraid I'm old enough to remember just about, when we'd had inflation before in the 80s or whatever. We're just going to have to get back used to that. And yes, it means that some years are difficult. Hate to say this, but it could well be that, basically we were very fortunate to have lived in pretty good times in the 2000s and the 2010s, whatever it is. And now we're going back to more difficult times.
It's funny
that's
you bring
not
up
a nice Sunday morning thought, is it? But I'm sorry. That's
cheerful.
David,
I'm your man for that. You can see why I've been banned from so many podcasts and whatever. But thanks for the invite, by the way.
You're very welcome.
I'll tell you what. Interesting what David was saying regarding the energy and what have you, and when you think what Liz Truss was saying regarding no solar panels in the fields, we just want cows and stuff like that. Here in France, they've done some trials at the moment with solar panels, and these things are like held on wires above the fields, and they're using them as a way to actually increase the growth, because obviously peak times of day when the sun is high. It bakes the soil and everything bolts, like cabbages, brassicas in general, stuff like that. They all bolt. We get really bad yields. This year has been a terrible yield in France because it was just such a hot summer. But if we can actually, with these solar panels, these new trials, these adjusting solar panels, basically shades these areas at certain times of the day. And then obviously, they effectively open. It's amazing, really, the ingenuity in it, how they've made this work. And it makes sense. So I can relate to that because I kind of do that here. what I've done regarding our land is I've planted trees in between certain areas of land, knowing full well the planting will still get a certain amount of enough daylight, but when the sun's a problem, they're shaded.
So solar power in fields might make lettuces last longer.
Oh no.
Sorry, couldn't resist. No wonder. That explains everything.
For example, here in Italy, she put solar panels on her roof last year, and towards the end of the year, she received a check for €1,500 from the energy company. So she was able to run her home, and she received money for it. And they've introduced new legislation. Well, not new. It's been in law a few years now. But all new properties, all new dwellings need to have a certain energy standard and solar panels if they have a roof. So the government can do it with the stroke of a pen. And why they're not doing it?
Well, they have actually. I've been in the building game for many years. Obviously not now because I'm in France, but we used to build extensions and houses and stuff like that as part of my business. And when it come down to it, we had to, as part of building regulation approval, we had to make sure. This is a long while. When was this? It's been mid 2004 it was. And the rule was that we had to make sure that there was at least one energy-saving device, whether it be a new extension or a loft conversion, or whether it be a complete house build. A bulb. That's all you had to do. You just had to make sure there was, and at that time, that's a fluorescent. It was just one energy-saving bulb, and that's just how lame it is. When we've got all those flipping roofs everywhere, they could be covered in flipping solar panels. Yep. Here in France, for instance, they've just passed a rule regarding new builds, like for instance, supermarkets. They have to provide shelter now for the cars. Yeah, like Lidl's, our local Lidl's in Saint Juan has now got a sheltered area for covered parking. That's covered parking for the cars. It's all covered in solar panels, and it's becoming the norm here. Whereas in the UK, it just seems to be slated. And there's all those industrial buildings everywhere with just tin roofs or cement, corrugated cement board roofs. Why the hell are we not covering them with solar panels?
Because they're morons.
Well, there must be. Because the investment pays for itself.
They're just morons. They don't know business. They really don't.
No.
Do you know you heard of these things called... Yeah, like there's 1,000 ways they could raise money if they wanted to. Every single government building could have solar panels. That means every single government building is making money. Every single government building could have batteries in, which means it's saving money. They could even jack up the electrical car industry by saying every single government car has got to be electric. Yeah. They are thick as two short planks. They really are. I could give you 1,000 ideas. I've been writing a list. I don't even mean looking back in history to see what they've done. Like, you can look at what Obama did. That's what he did. He said, right, we're going to do every single government building is going to be jacked up so it saves money both in the winter and generates money in the summer.
Making our buildings more energy efficient is one of the fastest, easiest, and cheapest ways to save money, combat pollution, and create jobs right here in the United States of America. And that's what we're going to do.
Jimmy Carter put solar panels on the White House in the 70s. And Reagan, because he's a total knob, decided to take him down. And you're just like, yeah, it's just like Reaganomics. Yeah, it's trickle-down stuff doesn't work. I look at a lot of this stuff, and I'm just like, they don't know basic business sense, which is why they went for the trickle-down economic neoliberal stuff. As David said, it didn't make any sense whatsoever to go and do that. It doesn't work. It's been shown not to work. And there's just this cabal at the top that just seem to be able to finance them and get them to repeat the stuff, like the IEA or the Taxpayers Alliance, which I'll be coming back to a little bit later on.
I was going to say, I hope you've got some topics here that you're not, cause I'm slightly concerned about the way this conversation's going, that not all of us may actually make it till the end, given the increasing levels of anger. Maybe there's something on the lighter side. Maybe you've listened to Taylor Swift's new album or something. I don't know. What else have you got for us?
So I'll just leave it on this. There's a thing called a vortex turbine that could be put into every single river that's fish friendly. I think it's being built in the Netherlands or it's Belgium. It's one or the other. But they cost like 600k and they generate a huge amount of electric, enough for like 13 houses to I think 50. So you're just going, again, this could be put into all of our rivers. Again, it's like makes everything more stable. The next thing I was going to bring up, so new topic.
I was just gonna say one thing I added on to that. I mean, I just bought because I was a bit worried about energy use at home, and I've been turning off the central heating but using a little space heater. So I thought that can't be using good for energy. Then I did a little search. I had to do more of a search than I would hope for. Found a little product that seems to be use 3 times less electricity for the same result. Okay, good. Well, we'll do. And, it's actually, there are these things, and, it's actually harder to find these things than it should be. So, yeah, that would be, there is some good news out there, but you perhaps have to find it.
Yeah, on a positive note regarding eco-energy and what have you, regarding solar panels and stuff, it doesn't have to be expensive. Everyone's in their mind about getting batteries, inverters and stuff like that, or connecting to the grid, which is expensive to do because they tie up into long contracts. But you can do self-consumption. Modern meters don't allow you to pump electric into the grid, such as your digital meters and what have you. Well, you can do self-consumption. If, for instance, you produce less than what you generally would use as your constant consumption, is what we do here. We have about 70% on solar here. Everything here that I'm running here has all been run by solar. And we mainly do self-consumption. So we don't put anything into the grid. We use it before it gets there. And besides, we can't get the grid anyway because there's a diode, so you can't do that. So it doesn't have to be expensive because the main cost is obviously the inverters and there's obviously the batteries themselves. That's the biggest cost of all. The solar panels are actually cheap now. It used to be about €1 a watt. Now it's about 50 centimes, per watt.
I've halved my electric and gas bill because I've done something similar. I got a solar panel and a battery that you normally take for camping, hook the two up together, and I've halved my electric bill over the last 6 months because I just chucked the solar panel out the roof, let the battery charge, and I charge my phone, I charge up lights, I even got a chargeable little mini Hoover. That. It's like...
Sorry, hang on.
Sorry, the whole house for that.
You sure that's not weaponry?
So, trade war.
I thought we were doing something better.
I have nothing.
All right, who's next Prime Minister? Max, who do you think is going to be?
It's difficult to predict at the moment because
Are we being logical?
Look, I'm trying to protect my reputation, so I would say Rishi Sunak, but I have a terrible fear it's going to be Boris Johnson because many people are saying online that no, he won't reach the threshold. He needs the 100 MPs. I don't know. I have a feeling he might hit that. But I think it depends on who's actually deciding. I think if the Tories decide, we actually need to fix this, they'll go with Rishi Sunak. But if the headbangers are in charge, then they'll go with Johnson. And it would be a disaster if Johnson becomes Prime Minister because...
Yeah, but I want to keep my job, so go for Johnson.
Because if there's an election, it'll be over. No, I was just going to say there was a poll that came out this morning, said that the Tories would end up with 5 seats, not 55, 5. Now I don't think that's going to really happen, but
so it's not going to be free seats then, is it? Ian, Duncan, and Smith.
Good one, David. What do you think?
First of all, I'm not overly enamoured of Rishi Sunak mania. I think that he made quite a lot of mistakes, but more importantly, I think several sections of the Conservative Party are out to get him. I'm not sure he would find it possible to actually govern effectively. Boris Johnson is already splitting the party just by his return, but I suspect right now he's probably marginally the favourite if he gets to a constituency vote, however they're going to do it, and that's fun and games of itself, because I'm not quite sure how you set up an electric voting system in such a short space of time and invite...
they did the
party
COVID
with an average age of 69 or whatever it is to use it, but anyway. So I think that might be... but I think he's the favourite. I actually suspect the only one who even had a vague chance of kind of bringing it all together is Penny Mordaunt, but she seems to be the outsider. And someone said to me, I think rightly, we probably don't want another untested female, or they won't want another untested female minister. But I suspect that Sunak and Johnson are just going to hate each other. I was just to say, is Johnson not going to actually try and expel Sunak from the party if he becomes leader? And I wouldn't count it out. On the other hand, if Johnson wins, so I think he's marginally the favourite, a couple of weeks ago, I sort of mused that a general election had moved from impossible to highly unlikely, and by the day, it becomes more likely that maybe you do get a general election. I know it's hard to imagine a majority, but if you're getting to the point where Conservative MPs are saying we would rather not serve as Conservatives than serve under this guy,
even
the whole thing could implode.
But even Christopher Chope is saying that we should have a by-election. Christopher Chope, of all people.
A by-election for Boris?
No, a general election. Chope said a general election, but now he's backing Boris, so I'm not sure whether he might have changed his mind.
I actually think that Chope is doing something. I think he's trying to bring down the Conservative Party. It's a bit conspiratorial.
Done that.
Well, no, but what I think because he's really angry with people within the party, and I think he wants to clean house and go back to the way things were before. And I think because a general election is the worst thing the Conservatives could do at this moment.
If they bring back Boris, that means that they've chucked him out. They had a change, and then they've got him back in within 6 weeks. And gone back to what it was before. But they won't do that with Brexit. And if you're a rejoiner, they'll slag you off. Like, accept democracy, accept this. And it's like, well, you're not. The
enemy of the people.
They'll just do whatever they want and just say they're great for it. Marcus, who's your favourite then?
For me, it'd have to be Richie Sunak if I keep my head on. But if I don't keep my head on, I want to keep things as mad as they currently are, because it's just entertaining, I have to admit, but also it's seriously dangerous, and I do worry about my kids. But it'd be Boris Johnson, but my hope is Richie Sunak. And I said this at the beginning. I said in my videos before, I've mentioned that I'd prefer. I'm not Tory, obviously, but I'd prefer Richie Sunak, even with his 400 quid shoes. I don't care about his fucking shoes. All I want to know is that he's competent and can do the job, and he's the only one who's really talked any sense, even through he kept to his guns all the way through this leadership challenge regarding fancy economics and Liz Truss and the Trussonomics, what have you, and it's all pretty much come true.
The problem is, whoever you pick, I think we lose.
Yeah, but do we?
Yeah,
we kind of need to break the eggs.
You
can't make an omelette without breaking the eggs, can you? And if we're going to get a general election at some point, how are we going to get it unless we break it?
The eggs are already on the floor and someone's trod on them. Just what the fuck? Literally, it's just an absolute shit show. I can't think of a historical in the UK. I cannot think of an historical equivalency of what's happened. I can think outside of the UK.
Yes, Berlusconi, for example.
Yeah.
Oh God, did you see what he got caught saying? Like in Italy, that was this news story that
no.
The one about
he came out and said it was the Ukraine's fault that Russia invaded.
In fact, well, he would, because you got sent a large amount of vodka from Putin for his birthday. Apparently, I mean, how Putin got the vodka to him, I'm not sure, given what's supposed to be.
I know. I did a video about this. There's underground pipes from Russia.
What, sending vodka?
Hose pipes sending vodka literally across the border into Ukraine. I
don't know if you're joking.
There was a 5 kilometre long pipe that they uncovered in Ukraine that led to Russia. And it literally was just like a hose pipe. And they were literally feeding this vodka through this hose pipe across the border into Ukraine.
No way.
Look it up.
Wow.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if there were things like that in Northern Ireland as well in the past.
I always thought it was a joke that they drank vodka like they drank water, but now it's true. It was just a horrible stereotype.
But I'm definitely getting Berlusconi vibes from Boris Johnson. So you think he's gone, but no, he's back. And
scary.
He's a total narcissist. He will rip up the party. He will go out for revenge, and the party's already split. He's not someone that can bring it together.
Like
he just doesn't have the ability.
Yeah, before Truss and Sunak had finished their campaign, their competition or campaign, whatever it was, there was a request for him to join up with them to create some sort of package for the cost of living crisis. And he was flying around in fighter jets instead. Yeah. He was going on holiday.
He doesn't care about the country.
And the ham actor is fantastic ham actor.
And anyway, look, I think you should be a bit sympathetic because this vacancy has arisen so suddenly. I think we're failing to take account of how bad it is for Boris Johnson. that he's been forced to think about bringing short a holiday in the Caribbean while Parliament's sitting in Stanley in order to come back. I mean, have some sympathy for the man.
You know what this is?
I don't think you're seeing it from his point of view, and I do wonder, actually,
he's probably glad to come back.
Can we not, could he? I think maybe he shouldn't be asked to go back in 10 Downing Street at all. He should, he could run the country from the beach in whatever Caribbean island he's at the moment, because,
Don't talk to me about Caribbean islands. I was stuck on the Caribbean island for 6 weeks with Graham Hughes with his hat. No, I was getting eaten by bugs, I was, literally. Yeah, I'll soon come back to number 10.
There's an interesting segue here with Boris, because Boris did a thing on LBC where he said,
I think an awful lot of money, an awful lot of police time now goes into these historic offences and all this malarkey, and 60 million pounds I saw was being spaffed up the wall on some investigation into historic child abuse and all this kind of thing. What on earth is that going to do to protect the public now?
And it now turns out that the report came out the same day. I do wonder if Liz Truss deliberately resigned on that day, because it seemed to take the news story away, and this should be much bigger. And I was following Twitter, and I was like, no one seems to be talking about this. To watch most of Question Time, it got brought up once, but literally the report said there's an epidemic of child abuse taking place inside the UK. And you read the reports, and you're like, this is crazy. It's got police cover-ups. And I mentioned just before we came on how Charles and Prince Philip didn't have to take the stand in the Diana case, even though there's written evidence. And in any other situation, they would have had to have been pulled in. Like Diana left a letter saying, I'm going to be whacked by my husband in a car crash. But he never had to take the stand. Prince Andrew is not being investigated by the police. And it's literally like, you read the report that's come out, and it's like, senior police are telling low-level officers not to investigate high-profile people. And we could see that with Savile. We saw that, how Johnny Rotten comes on TV and goes, I know.
On film, I'd like to kill Jimmy Savile. I think he's a hypocrite.
Weren't I right?
I bet he's into all kinds of seediness that we all know about, but we're not allowed to talk about. I know some rumours. I bet none of this will be allowed out.
I should imagine libelous stuff will be allowed out.
Nothing I said is liable.
There you are, saying about Jimmy Savile, he was into all kinds of seediness that we all knew about. We weren't allowed to talk about it. I know some rumours. So you had heard the kind of thing that we now know about him, or stuff like that?
Yeah. And
did you meet?
I found myself being banned from BBC Radio there for quite a while for my contentious behaviour.
Because of that?
But they wouldn't state this directly. There'd be other excuses.
I mean, it's shocking.
Oh, yeah.
He got away with it for another 30-odd years.
Well, not only him, a whole bunch of them.
Anyone else read about the report?
What's up with Piers Morgan?
Thoughts on it?
Was that an interview with Piers Morgan, Johnny Rotten, Piers Morgan? Yeah, John Litton.
Yes.
Yeah, Piers Morgan.
Yeah. Where he came out and admitted that and said, this is what's happened. And I think the piece got leaked. You also listened to about boarding schools. And again, it's like...
Wangland.
What are your thoughts then, Max, on this report? Did you get a chance to read it?
No, I haven't. I haven't had a chance to read it, but it sounds very interesting. Allegedly, Lord Mountbatten had a villa or a mansion in Northern Ireland where young boys were sent there to him.
Wow.
I don't know the full details of that.
But Gisa Maxwell, I don't know if you heard, but I think it was probably Daily Mail or something. I think it made a statement saying that the picture of Andrew and the girl, what have you, was a doctored picture.
Yeah,
that's what she's saying. I looked at it. There's no way I stopped it.
She also said that she's friends with Andrew. Andrew's lawyers said that they weren't friends.
Yeah, well, they obviously were.
It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's just...
Is that like a veiled threat from her or something? I don't know what she's trying to do.
So where does Piers Morgan stand in all this, apart from next to them?
He's an interesting character because he was in the Diana film saying, the monarchy were all at it. And then he goes doolally over the Queen. and starts singing her graces about how great she is. But like 10 years earlier, he was saying that she was probably part of
that's Farageism, isn't it?
Yeah.
One minute he's going on about King Charles Prince Charles, and should shut up over the economy, and then he's they were fag hanging out of his. Well, you see smoke drifting up, can't you? But he is going on about how great he is, how great the Queen was and stuff, the monarchy.
It should be a major story, because you sort of look at the UK and you're like, how the whole system needs complete overhaul if we've literally got police defending essentially the upper class and the famous and the rich.
But Lord Man,
and the detriment of about, because I think they said in total it's about 4 million kids, 4 million have been abused within the UK, and yet Liz Truss seems to resign on the same day as the report comes out. I personally think this should collapse the government. But you were watching Question Time last night.
No one
was talking about it.
No, I was watching it last night.
Did it come up at all? Because I didn't watch the end.
Although Rachel Johnson didn't have much support for her brother.
That was a bit of a car crash in terms of television, wasn't it?
It was. Jess Phillips was very good, though. Jess Phillips was very good. She said it as it was. She's very forthright.
Yes, she got more applause than Rachel Johnson, all the Conservatives in that.
Rachel Johnson did have dinner with Nigel Farage, so I suppose that was something to watch.
Well, Rachel Johnson's entire career is based on the fact that her brother was Mayor of London and an MP and Prime Minister. Really, there's no reason why Rachel Johnson has any sort of career apart from that.
Well, at least she's a bit of a greenie, so I respect her for that.
Yeah. No.
She's going on about topsoil and how it's depleted. She was comparing topsoil and the Tory party. Sorry.
But Boris was considered a greenie, wasn't he?
Well, basically, because his dad, Boris just does what he's not what he's told. He does what he wants just to gain favour, doesn't he? It's all about Boris, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, he got rid of his brother, didn't he, in the Tory party because they did in disagreement. He'll step on anybody, including his own father, to get what he wants.
Like a true narcissist. Well, this is why I'm so concerned about him coming back. We sort of loop the whole thing back round again. I think they'll cover up more stuff, and I think he'll just clear out the party of anyone that stabbed him in the back. And God knows who you'll get to replace. Because that's the other concerning thing. If this is like the sort of level of standard that you have within the Tory party now, and he's going to clear him out and probably go more far right in his collection of new Conservatives and the Conservative power.
Yeah, but the only good Conservatives Boris Johnson got rid of. I say good Conservatives, as far as the Conservatives is. You know, like the Anna Soubry's and the Ken Clarks and people like that. You know, they were pretty much exiled from the party.
Well, it's an interesting thing with the sort of Johnson view of politics. Once you get beyond the extreme narcissism, and even I have been pulled up on this as suggesting that Boris Johnson is an extreme narcissist because people say, well, it's narcissistic. That's extreme enough, but no. He takes it to extremes. But if you actually look at anything he believes in beyond himself, I mean, there is some sort of green in there, some sort of public investment, build more bridges or railways or this
tunnels
sort of stuff. He's not actually particularly a red-blooded Conservative, so he gets all the support from the kind of extreme wing, the kind of blow up Europe kind of wing. Boris Johnson spent his early years in Brussels. He was in the same school or kindergarten or something as the Commission President. There are a few more people in UK politics who have more of a grounding in European politics than Boris Johnson. He didn't back leaving the EU because he believes in leaving the EU or because he wants to destroy Europe. He backed it because he thought it would be good for his career.
Yeah.
So,
I can imagine.
Insofar as he has views, and clearly his wife has strong views on the environment and one or two other issues which he now reflects. So it makes even less sense every time you look at this. It makes even less sense. You get the sort of the nutters wanting Boris to come back to go take through policies that he's not going to take through anyway, because even apart from that, he's just lazy and he won't do difficult things anyway. Not.
It's not even controversial to say that he is lazy. Like, and why would you want that as a prime minister? And literally, the Tory MPs that came out and said he's the worst prime minister to have in a crisis. And we've literally had like 3 or 4 crises happen in the UK, and he's been there with all of them. I mean, I'm not even sure how he pulled the rabbit out of the hat with Ukraine. I thought they were going to fluff that as well after Afghanistan. That seems to be the one of the few things that they're actually able to sort out to a certain extent.
But that's where he loves to be the center of attention. He loves to be the statesman. So that's why I think, and I've said before, how if the Brexit vote had gone the other way, Boris Johnson would be touring European capitals talking about how Britain is the center of Europe, and he would have taken advantage of that.
He's done that before.
Yeah.
You know, or stay in the single market, he goes. And then what does he do? Pretty much breaks it up. Regarding the UK, that is.
Aren't they all like that? Nigel Farage has got a German wife.
Well,
Diana Hannan lived in Europe. Richard Tice, I think, lived in Spain. And who's the other one? Well, Boris, obviously, in Brussels.
Oh, it's the guy who's lived in in France. The old geezer. What's his name?
Andrew Neil.
Not him as well.
Nigel Lawson, you're looking for, I think. Nigel Lawson lives in France.
Nigel Lawson, that's it, Nigel Lawson. Yeah.
So they've all gone and said, it's all right for us to go and do it, but you can't now, to the youth generation, which is just...
And Boris's dad.
Yeah, well, he got himself a passport, didn't he?
When he was in Italy, he was getting local complaints by his neighbours and that because he wasn't cutting his grass.
Okay, final question then.
Okay.
As there was so much wrestling going on...
Tonight, we are going to witness the most anticipated match in the history of professional wrestling.
No, that wasn't wrestling. It was manhandling by Teresa Kopi. It's like a tsunami of Lurpak. That it is.
Who would you
like
can't
afford
to take?
Lurpak. It'll have to be some value brand or something. Obviously, it's too expensive.
Who would you like to take on more? So I'm gonna throw this over to Marcus first. Would you take on Mog or Coffee in a wrestling match?
Coffee, because I can run away from her. She'll never catch up.
Run around in circles. She's like the shit monster, isn't she? She's just the shit demon. That's it, the shit demon. God, she's just awful, absolutely awful. Look what she's done to the NHS. The idea that we can just hand over the responsibility of antibiotics to the pharmacies is just clear madness. For a start, they don't have our records, do they? You know? No.
They don't know what. Yeah, for instance, I'm allergic to penicillin. I don't want the pharmacy administering me penicillin. For God's sake.
Well, then she was telling out she was a drug dealer. She was handing out.
She is handing out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd stay away from Teresa Coffee if I were you then, because she's going to give you antibiotics, so she's probably a bit.
She's going to give you something.
So if I were you, I think you better be wrestling more
give you cheese.
I'm afraid we've worked that out for you.
David,
it's like a walking yeast infection. Go on.
I've got.
Are you ready?
The IEA or the Taxpayers Alliance, and who would you have as a tag team partner?
That's a question.
Yeah. I'm never quite sure the Taxpayers Alliance actually exist. You know. I mean, also you get the Taxpayers Alliance, like there's some definite article for a front for all the rest of the groups. So doing this properly, it better be the IEA really if we're doing this properly.
And who's your tag team partner be?
Yeah, well that's
Antifa.
You could go to anyone in history. I'll give you that as a extra. Maybe that'll complicate it more, but you can pick anyone.
I can't.
In their prime.
I'm still wrestling them rather than arguing economics with them.
I think you could choose.
Actually,
both.
I
who
think
would you physically get, and who would you?
I think I'm bringing in into my defence Winston Churchill just because they're just gonna hate that so much. They'll be like, our saviour, and he'd be like, you know, some grave insult that nobody can really understand or whatever. And plus, in which he'll bring along the champagne and the cigars. So, I mean, it won't be much of a wrestling match, but it'll be a lot of fun in doing it, I think.
Max.
Yes.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Boris or Andrew Bridgend? Who to take on?
I'd probably take on Boris because he probably.
Well, they're both liars.
Yeah, you could tell him. Yeah, you could. I don't know. You could throw him some money or something, or you could throw him. You could say, "I'll put you in the House of Lords" or something. I don't know. Andrew Bridgen. No, I don't trust that guy, and he'd go below the belt. Boris maybe. Boris.
Below the tone.
I'll take.
Cut. Can they really go any lower in the polls?
No, like one poll said yesterday that they'd get one seat. They'd have one if they went in with Liz Truss. Like, that was.
It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful if it was like some guy in Scotland or something like that.
It was S&P.
And on that cutful note, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a beautiful Sunday roast.
You take care, buddy.
Take care.
I hope everybody's well.
Yes.
And don't worry.